Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Uncensored. I hope everyone's safe and healthy and that your family members are also safe at home and healthy. It is what it is at the time. So we just make the best out of it. And we are back. And I have a special guest on the other side of the screen. And that is Mickey Whitefer, who is a Thirst 2, who is currently home in South Africa because she went for vacation and she had to extend her vacation. A lucky girl. Thank you, Mickey. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I invited Miki because she is 25, so very young stewardess, which is typical in the industry. But yet she has this level of maturity that I absolutely honor and really inspiring. So I've been watching her on social media, and I just felt the call that she should be here on the show with me. And as you guys know, this is a very intuitive show. So what came up for her was body image, and also she talked about blinders, which it was something that her dad was afraid of when she was about to join the industry. And for me, a white room came, this image of a white room. So Mickey, when you hear the words, body image, blinders, and white room, what comes up for you?
For me, it's just the fact that I think so many people come into the industry with a certain image or an idea in their head and they don't fully understand or realize what the industry actually means and what it means to be working in the industry. And I think it's like I say, with you coming with blinders on, where you expect one thing because that's what you see on social media, because everyone's sharing the fun stuff on social media, and you don't necessarily realize the rest of it.
So what is the rest of it? What is the reality behind what we don't see in social media?
I'd say let's start with just the actual work itself. I mean, I did a lot of industry even before I joined the industry. So I was, you read blogs that are like, oh, it's long hours and it's hard work, it's everything. But I don't think people genuinely realize the fact that it is 16, 17-hour days nonstop for weeks, months on end. Like people tell you and you're like, yeah, it's fine. But you're actually there and you have, like in my first season, we had the guests on for 3 months. They didn't leave. And I kind of was like, oh, like this is what they meant. Okay, it really is from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. every night, and hopefully there's a break in between. And so that for me was a really big one of just, you come and everyone's like hard work, and everyone's like, yeah, I've worked hard before, but it's not the grueling like on your feet all day running around crazy. And then that's a big one for me, and I think the reality of it as well is it's often very isolating. You can be depending on your crew as well. If you don't have someone you connect with, at least one person, it can be so lonely and so frustrating. And because that was my first season, I didn't have anyone to talk to. There was no one there. I had a roommate, but we worked completely different shifts. He would start a couple hours before me and was in bed a couple hours before me, and you never really had that person to talk to. And you'd phone, I was always on the phone to my dad or my mom or even just friends at home, and they don't really understand it. They try, so you can't blame them. I mean, they were incredibly supportive, but if it's not somebody within the industry that's like, I get it and I know what you're talking about, it's so isolating. And I don't think anyone I don't remember anyone talking about that before I joined the industry. So it's like I wasn't quite prepared for that. I kind of expected to join on and find like these amazing friends, because everyone says what amazing friends they meet, which I understand now. But at the time, it was just like, oh, okay, so I actually don't have any like crewmates that are my friends, and I didn't. So I expected to have like this cool like roommates and best friend that I found in my roommates, and I found that now. I love my roommates, and I work with a great crew now, but in the beginning you don't realize that that may not be the case. So those are two very big ones for me. And the other one that was really tough for me when I came into the industry was I kept seeing stews online, stews I was meeting in person, and they were all these tiny petites little what I like, that was my vision. And for me, to me, that became what you needed to be a good stew, was like skinny and small. And I don't know, that's just what I kept seeing online as one. I was like, really got insecure. And funny enough, the first boats I joined, they already had the guests on, and I joined, and my chief steward was like a size 2. She was minute, she was tiny, and they didn't have a uniform for me. The largest size they had on board was a size 8, and I was a size 12. So for 3 weeks, so she obviously had to order a uniform, and I'd sent her my sizes previously, but I don't know, there must have been I was literally running around in the deckhand shorts and like a man's polo, and I didn't have any shoes or anything. So that really like crushed my confidence. I was like running around in shorts. I just felt so stupid, for lack of a better word. Like I just felt ridiculous. And then it just reinstilled the fact of, you know, you need to be small and you need to be this. And I feel like a lot of boats do, which is their prerogative for the owners to have a certain standard of people that they want, or ladies they want on board. But I eventually had to realize that there's a boat out there for everyone, and that just because I'm not a size 2 doesn't mean I'm not worthy of being in the industry, and doesn't mean I work any less hard, or that I'm any less able to do my job and that I'm bad at my job. So I think that was also, that might not be an issue for everybody coming in with blinders, but that just for me, I was like, and I didn't even realize that was the limiting belief I had going on in my mind until I was on this boat and didn't have a uniform. And I was just like, oh, okay, great.
Wow.
So,
yeah, thanks for sharing. So one thing that comes up when we're sharing was that, yeah, you said, people talk about the fun stuff, and people talk about all these amazing adventures and friends and all this.
Yeah.
That it is part of the reality of the industry. But a lot of people don't talk about what you say, the isolation part of it, the fact that sometimes you may find yourself in a boat where you have no people to talk to and all that stuff. And that really, your environment really has a massive impact in yourself, and how you perform and how you, live your life, basically. And they say, when they say, I'll tell you who you are with the 5 people that you have around you. Now I kind of get it, because it's not so much like it's literal, but it is in a way, because it really affects you. So if people that are around you are not happy-go-lucky people, positive people, you're going to start, your life force energy, your prana is going to start going down, and that means that you're going to become depressed, and you're going to become like them, because it's just energy, and energy is intertwined constantly. And if any of you guys understand quantum physics, then you know exactly what I'm talking about, because everything in the universe is just energy. And either you get more or you get less, and the less you get, well, at some point you'll die, because something that's dead has no energy. So so you talked about, this whole body image thing, and having to go through, having to wear a man's uniform and all this stuff, and really, shining on your shadow, right? Like right there is like, okay, are you ready? Because we're like going to make you go through this, and see if you can transform it. So have you transformed that body image self-limiting belief? And if you have, how did you do it? Or where in the process are you?
I would say I'm in the process, because I realized like it actually, when I dug a little deeper, I realized it wasn't just a yachting thing. It was like a life limiting belief. It was this limiting belief that if you don't look a certain way, you're not good enough. So as soon as I realized that, and I realized that it wasn't just yachting, it was this belief I had in general, and it's something I've believed since I was a kid, then I could start working through it. So for me, it's a daily process. So I always feel like I've made the realization, like I know that my worth isn't dependent on my physical appearance, and it's more about what's on the inside, and for me, how I can serve others. So I've realized that, but it doesn't kind of mean that I just don't have these beliefs or limiting beliefs anymore. So it is just for me a daily practice of catching that conversation in my head when I start telling myself I'm not good enough, or I'm not attractive, or all of that. So it's like catching yourself in that story, and just being kinder to yourself, because as soon as you show some kindness and love to yourself, that's also when things start shifting. Because as soon as I can turn around and be like, that's not true, and like apologize to myself, so like, I'm sorry for saying that, because I realized as well, I'd never turn around to somebody else and be like, oh, you're a size 12, you're not good enough for this industry, like it doesn't mean like you're a bad worker or anything like that. And I was just like, if I wouldn't say that to, and I would never in my life say that to a human being, I was like, if I wouldn't say it to somebody else, what on earth makes it okay to say it to myself? So it's just like having these constant, or having when you have those thoughts, go and catch yourself in it and try to change the conversation in your head. And I've been doing this now for the last year, and it's like those limiting beliefs are still so prevalent in my everyday like conversation in my head, but it's getting easier, and it's just a daily practice, I would say.
And I love that, because that's what people don't understand. It's like, there's no magic tool, you know what I mean? Like, you have been telling yourself the same story for so long that it's on repeat. So, you know, you literally just talked about what Gabby Bernstein calls the choose again method, which is basically you have a thought that is limiting, right? It's like in that repeat monkey mind, and then you call it, and you're like, okay, what is this thought? Okay, the thought is I'm not good enough, you know, I'm not pretty enough, whatever it is. And then you choose again. But before choosing again, you have to do what you do, which is forgive yourself for having that thought. So it's a 3-step process. You realize what the thought is, then you forgive yourself. I forgive myself for having that thought. And then you move into the choosing again process, which is choosing the next best thought. And that doesn't mean I'm good enough and I'm beautiful and no, because if you don't believe that, then it's not going to match. It may be, oh, I'm so thankful that I have food. I'm so thankful I still have a job. I'm thankful that is what's going to really shift, because those thoughts you actually do believe, and that shifts your vibration. Because people go from like, you know, I am ugly to I am, you know, Cindy Crawford. You know what I mean? It's like, well, you don't actually believe that. So it's not going to really work out. So I love that you brought that up, because it's something that I've been actually using myself. And I use it a lot with like financial stress and all this stuff, and anxiety that you get from uncertainty. And it's such a great daily practice that you have to do. Like every time you catch yourself, you choose again and you choose again and you continue to choose again until the story just changes, because at some point you're going to believe a different story. Another thing that kind of came up, and this, I don't even know, this is obviously not off topic from what we're talking about, but it may be very something out there for all of you guys, Yachty people. You know, you said that you realized that this whole thing wasn't really installed by the yachting industry, you know, that it was something that you were carrying in your life. So one thing in my life that I have found is that everything starts in the uterus. So when you're in your mother's womb, and a lot of these self-limiting beliefs come from literally when you're in the womb, you're like this little sponge. And whatever your mom felt, whatever your mom believed of herself, you literally receive and you carry on with it, because you don't have any other choice but to do so until you become an adult, and all of a sudden you're like, this is not really what I believe of me, but why is this thing keep coming up? And not really until we do that that work of going back to the womb and really giving back what is not ours, you know, and shifting that story, that things don't really start to transform, let's say. But I love that you said that, because it is so true. Many of the things that we go through in yachting, the victim side of us say, oh, it's because of yachting is doing this to me. It's like, well, not really. Yachting is just shedding the, you know, putting light on it and making it very vivid for us. But it's something that is been with us for a long time, you know, and that comes from probably the womb or somewhere along the middle, who knows. But what comes up for you when I say all this?
couldn't agree more, and I love the way you've put it, because it is, sometimes people say, oh, it's because of yachting, but I've realized that like sometimes it was always there before. Yachting just sometimes highlights it or brings it forward, and I feel like this comes up a lot with a lot of people I've met when it comes to drinking or partying, or a lack of self-control is actually a better way to put it. So whether that's spending money and shopping and all of that, or it's partying, or it's drinking, or it's anything, it's not those specific things, it's a lack of almost self-control. And sometimes that lack of self-control leads to this, and that isn't because of yachting, that's because of things previously. So maybe before you didn't have the ability to control your own finances, so now you don't know how to, or before you didn't have the ability to just spend, because we do obviously know that in yachting you have an abundance of money almost, because you have more than you need because you don't have expenses. So I think for a lot of people that comes up. And then it also, for me, I feel like a lot of people haven't been taught the coping mechanisms for stress, anxiety, stressful working situations, small living spaces. And because people don't have those coping mechanisms, that's when they turn to drinking and partying. And then that in itself is a downward spiral. I worked on a boat on a temp contract. It was only for a month. And I think we had the boss on for 12 days, 2 weeks out of those 4 weeks. And the other 2 weeks, there was 3 or 4 crew on that boat that literally every day at 5 o'clock we finished working, got changed and were at the pub every night. It was just, there wasn't even a thought about it. It was just, okay, so we're going. And if someone didn't want to go, it was kind of, well, why don't you want to? And for me, especially over the last year, I've been making a shift away from drinking, because again, I was using it to cope. I wasn't dealing with issues. I was drinking to cover things up. And so I wasn't drinking with that crew, and I never fit in. I wasn't comfortable in the environment. I didn't get on with anyone because I wasn't going out drinking. So I think for me, it does become a thing of people, I think they like to blame the industry because it's easier than dealing with the actual issues that go below. But I think for some people as well, they don't have someone to tell them to look deeper, if that makes sense. Because if I hadn't had certain people I was working with that were pushing me to look inward, I would probably still be in this spiral of, oh, well, it's because of yachting, or it's because of this. So until people have someone I almost want to feel like shake them and be like, do you not see what's actually going on here? That there's deeper layers, and it's exactly like you were saying, it's from in vitro. It's like generational trauma almost. Like it just gets passed on. And if your parents don't know how to cope or deal with something, they don't teach you those boundaries and those capabilities and those abilities. So until you realize that and go back and work on it, and like you say, I for ages thought it was just like a click of the fingers. I realized that I can move on now. I know what to do, and it's not. It's hard work, and I think that's what puts a lot of people off, because it brings up a lot of stuff they don't want to deal with, and it's daily hard work. But that's where I feel like, and I haven't really thought about this much or in this way until we've spoken about now, and I've realized how many things I've noticed that people would just so easily associate with yachting. Oh, it's because of yachting, or it's because of this. But it's actually just people need to look inwards and turn inwards and like almost sort out what's going on inside, and the limiting beliefs and the story going on, like you were saying.
Totally. So I have 2 questions. One, how and who, you talked about somebody or some people that were like the ones that help you through, kind of like, hey, there's something deeper, and I want you to talk a little bit about that, and how that happened, and how you kind of like got shaken and be like, oh, okay, I'm covering this up with my drinking. And then also, what about, I want to know how you feel about, because a lot of people are like, well, I just drink, because I like to drink, and it's nothing, I'm not covering anything up, and, it's just like a social thing, versus, is it really, and how much do we really enjoy drinking,
Yeah.
And also, you talked about coping mechanisms and the fact that we are not giving these tools, like we go and we do STCW and we do all these other courses that are amazing in case we have different emergencies, but we don't really have the tools or the knowledge or the understanding when it comes down to our mental health and really coping with different situations and scenarios that are almost in the invisible realm,
Yeah.
let's say. And I know I ask you a lot of things, so just whatever comes up for you first.
Firstly, when I got back to my boat after my holiday last year, the boat I was on previously, and I realized like I was sliding back into this darker place, I want to say, because I was quite happy when I was home. I mean, who isn't happy when they're at home on holiday? And I'd started this self-development journey, but I realized just being back on board, I was in that same negative, toxic place. And like you say, even if you don't choose those people, the people you're around the most have the biggest influence and impact. So I actually reached out to Karine at the Crew Coach, and she was there for me for the entire every time I needed somebody. And she has all those amazing resources available. She was also just somebody who understood what was going on and I could talk to and could help me through things. So she was really she was pivotal in helping me. Yeah.
When you talked about these people that help you shift and brought, light to the shadow, it wasn't actually people in the crew. You actually had to go out and reach out to somebody. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And for me, it was online, which was so weird for me as well, because I was used to having people at home before the yachting that were around me, my friends, my family. So now and that's what I think was also different as well, as I realized I needed help and I reached out to somebody. And I didn't know Karine before, we hadn't spoken before, but I just messaged her because of her work that she does and because she talks about all of this so much. And it was her and Chelsea Haynes. She was the Yogi Yachty, but now she's just Chelsea Haynes. And her and I worked together on a one-on-one coaching basis. And that was because also working with Karine, I realized like I needed to go inward and sort myself out. And that's why I say you have to make that realization for yourself that it's deeper things that need to be sorted out within yourself. So they were two people that really helped me, I would say, navigate this and learn. And Chelsea was the one that from the coaching helped me realize these things. And she shook me out of this place of like, you can't just it's that saying, is life happening to you, is life happening for you? And I think I was in a place of, or everything keeps happening to me. This is all like doomsday and all of that. And eventually it was the shift of, well, this is all for a reason and there's meaning, I would say, behind things. You don't quite know what it is at the time, but if that makes sense. I don't know if so those were two people that and like you said, it wasn't people in my physical circle or on the crew. And then what was the second question?
So the second question was about, we were talking about drinking and how you decided to shift out of drinking because you understood and realized that your drinking was really just a coping mechanism because you didn't want to deal with what the underlying cause was. So when we talk about this, a lot of people that are doing that or that simply drink, they get triggered. And all of a sudden it's like, no, well, that's not me, I just like to drink and I like to have a good time and blah, blah. So I wonder from your perspective, when do you know you're just socially drinking and really not, what do you call it? Not using it as a coping mechanism versus when you actually know that you are doing that to prevent yourself from actually going deeper within yourself.
Yeah. It's also tricky because no one will obviously sit here and go, I use it as a coping mechanism, but I've definitely realized I do. And I think for me, it came when I didn't like who I was when I was drinking, and it kept making me question, well, then why do I keep doing this? If I don't like who I become, why do I keep doing it? And at one stage, I remember, I think I said I can't remember who it was, but I was like, but I need a drink because I need to stop what's going on in my head. And I think that for me was such a big thing because I overthink as well. Like my brain's constantly going. And for me, I realized, oh, okay, I want to drink because I need to get out of my head. Like I should rather journal or meditate. So that for me, looking back, was kind of the point where I was like, oh, I don't want to use this as a coping mechanism. And I think for me, I see it as if you want to socially drink, then you should do it for yourself, if that makes sense. Like my roommate at the moment, like I said, she's brilliant, but she will literally come out for a social drink and at 9:30 leave because she wants to be in bed at 10, because this is obviously in the winter out of the season, or even in the summer when we had time off. So she was one of those people who would stay true to herself and was like, I don't want to drink, or I'm coming for 1 or 2 drinks, and would leave. She wouldn't get pressured into staying longer or drinking more than she was. And I think peer pressure is also a big issue. I've suffered from peer pressure as well, where I like, okay, I'm coming for 1 drink and then I'm out, and people are like, no, stay, have more, have another. Oh, you're so lame if you leave. And then you're like, oh, must stay. And I think it becomes, I'm trying to find the word.
What I'm hearing here, the difference between your roommate and somebody like you, or that, that had been through the whole peer pressure and just stays because of it, is the difference is that she has boundaries, the other people don't have boundaries. And she knows exactly where her boundaries are, and people respect that because she respects her own boundaries, and nothing will change her mind. And then the other ones are like, oh, I don't even know my boundaries, so fuck it, okay, let's stay. Yeah, totally.
Yep, that's me as well. And that's something I'm working through at Chelsea, is setting boundaries and sticking to them. Like I've decided now this year I'm not going to drink excessively. I'll have a glass of wine at dinner, or I won't, but I'm not going to go out with the purpose of drinking, which I've never done before. I've always gone out with the purpose of drinking. If I'm going out, it's to get drunk. And I've now put that in place, and I can already see how it makes people uncomfortable, if that makes sense, because already people will be like, but what do you mean you're not going to drink? Like, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, I'll go for dinner, have a glass of wine. If you guys go out, I'll come, but I'm not going to have an alcoholic drink. And already that's just my friends at home that I'm not even working with, and they're already like, but what you're not going to drink? And like people don't understand it. I think it's because even at our age, it's all about drinking. I don't know why, but like I think a lot of people, and like you say, if you don't have boundaries or set those boundaries, it's so easy for somebody else to manipulate them because you're not even sure of them or what they are. And that's been my issue for a long time, is that I didn't have any boundaries. So like you say, I wasn't respecting them, so nobody else was. So if I'd be like, oh no, I'm just going for 1 drink, every time I'd be home at 4 a.m. very drunk, eating in the crew mess. And it just became what it was. So I think it's so hard to say to somebody that they're not dealing with their emotions because they're just drinking, because everyone's like, no, but it's just for fun.
But I do think that the key of it that you actually spoke about, because at least for me, that was very also, it was the same thing that I realized. Like I personally right now don't drink alcohol, and it was a choice I made, but it was a struggle for many, many years. And one thing the one thing that got me to thinking that I needed to stop because I wasn't dealing with the reality of things was because I didn't like myself when I was drinking. That was the key of like, you know what, why am I keep doing this when I actually don't enjoy it anymore, and I don't actually like who I become. And that was like when the whole struggle became. And I went through what you're going through, where it's like people finding it weird for you to go out and not drink. But you know what shifted for me? That was the fact that I realized that they're uncomfortable because I wasn't yet comfortable with the whole idea. When I became comfortable with my boundaries and what I wanted to be perceived as and what I wanted to stand for, then the mirror changed. Wow. And they literally, that whole thing of like, oh, is it going to be weird? It went away because I didn't have that doubt anymore. So they couldn't show me that doubt because they're just a mirror of myself, you know?
That's so true.
Yeah, that was like a really big one for me.
That's incredibly powerful, because I hadn't realized that it, again, is within, because I do think that we only see in others a reflection of ourselves. Like you say, it's the mirror. And I don't, as you said that, I just realized now that I haven't become clear on the goals or the aims or the boundaries moving forward. I've just kind of said, okay, I'm not drinking, but I haven't fully delved into why and what that would mean for me and the thing I want to gain out of it. So when people ask, but why? I'm kind of like, just because I don't like, and then I understand what you're saying, because then it's an uncertainty in myself. And obviously the way I portray it, that people are like, oh, but that's just, that's crazy. So thank you for that, because that means I need to actually do a little more work and dig a little deeper and get more clear, because I know it's something I want to do. I want to stop drinking. Like I said, I'll have a glass of wine at dinner, but even that, I'm like, do I actually want to do that? Or am I just saying that because it's then an easier concept to like get my head around? Okay, but I'll still drink if I want, kind of.
I mean, I went through that. I went through like just a glass of wine, and then it will be fine for a while. And then it was like one day I would get massively drunk, and then I would like hate myself for it. And it was like, it was horrible until now, where I literally, I don't think of alcohol. I don't crave alcohol. I see it as a serving tool that got me where I am today in a way. But it definitely has no positive impact in my life, and that's why I choose not to consume it. Simple as that. Maybe for somebody else has a positive impact, and great. I honor you and I celebrate you, but that's not me. And I do have that understanding, and because I do, and like you said, clarity, I'm very clear, then my mirror is as clear as me.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's so powerful as well. And like, I love it you say as well that you don't, if it's somebody else's decision, it's their decision. And that's for me, I'll never judge anybody else's decision. But like you said, it's no longer serving me and I don't feel a need for it. So I fully agree with you on that, and it resonates really, really deeply as to, why.
The other question, and let's call this the last question. You talked about, when we talked about not having the coping mechanisms on board, what I would like to know from your perspective as a crew member, and with, with the resources that are available right now on a vessel, what would you advise, or how would you like to be supported by your head of departments to cope with different mental health, things?
Yeah. I think it's so important as well for this mental health topic to not be so taboo anymore. To me, it's crazy that some people are still so quiet about mental health, or I don't know, they just almost easily offended when people want to talk about mental health. Like, we even have a higher ranking officer on board that kind of thinks it's still all like, it's not real, and it's kind of, if you want to talk about it, I wouldn't say it's frowned upon, but it's certainly not well received, and then there's, oh no, just like, get on with it kind of thing. So I think for me, it's incredibly important as well to have your heads of departments be aware that it is a big issue in normal life, let alone like life at sea and on the yachts and on board. So I think for me, it would just be creating the awareness that people do struggle with this. People process situations and different things differently, and that can't be frowned upon. If somebody gets stressed or anxious or depressed in a certain situation, just because you wouldn't, doesn't mean that their feelings are any less valid. And then I think it would be really important for at least someone on the boat, if it can't be an HOD, to be able to help that person, whether it's provide them with the resources, be a person to talk to, or give them the coping mechanisms. I think it's just starting a conversation about it on board. Let people know that they're not alone, especially on maybe the smaller boats or even the big boats. Just let people know that if they are feeling something, that they're not alone. And if they don't want to talk to somebody on the crew, provide them with the resources to be able to contact somebody outside of the crew. So whether that be crewing at the crew coach or on your, whoever it would be, just make sure that people feel comfortable enough to be able to come forward, and that they're not going to be, because I've read stories as well where people have been let go because they spoke about it or it was an issue or something like that. So I think, one, just creating conversation and awareness around it so that people don't feel alone or secluded, or like there's going to be ramifications if they do talk about it or come forward. And then just having somebody possibly to be able to handle that, because I also think handling people's depression and their stress and anxiety, you need somebody who's not going to take it on as well, if that makes sense. So maybe somebody that's trained in it, and if there isn't somebody on board, then give the crew the resources to reach out to external people.
Totally, I agree with that. And me as a head of department, I believe strongly in that. You don't need to ask people. You just need to, when you do your crew meetings, just say, hey, if anybody's feeling down or anything, we're here to support you. Please come forward. Let's talk. And even if they don't want to share it with you, like, you should, like you said, you should have the resources to give to this person. And I love that you said that, because on the Yachts Mermaids platform, yachtsmermaids.com, if you go to our support directory, you're going to find all the actual support that is available to the crew members, from people who understand yachting because they themselves have been crew or are currently crew. And, there's, like you said, from somebody like Karine to Chelsea to Belle's Esprit to Nikki Lutz. Like, there's a lot of them. There are like over 15 of them. And we also have a to-go support PDF that you can download, that it gives you all from Europe to America, everybody that is available to you right now, that is not even part of the directory per se, but that is actually available. So all the numbers, like for if you need immediate help, like let's say you have a suicidal thought or whatever, like who to call. So, I really invite crew members to go and download this and have it and keep it, and especially head of departments, chiefs, stewards, pursers, please download this, have it there. This is your resource. So if somebody comes forward or there's an episode on board, then you know who to send
reach
them
out to,
because you may not be qualified to handle the situation, and that's totally okay. But you should have the resources to help this person, to send them to. So I love that. And thanks for that reminder, because that's really, really important. So I loved having you on the show. This was really good. It was just kind of like took off on its own direction. But I think it's something, everything that we talked about here today is something that pretty much everybody can relate to. We all can relate to self-isolation. We all can relate to binge drinking. We all can relate to, no coping with our emotions. We all can relate to body image, because even male, probably feel that they don't fit in. And so what's your final message, Miki?
It is just that you aren't alone, and that there is always somebody out there for you, and that the stories going on in your head aren't true, and that they can be changed, and that there's just so much more out there than your head is allowing you to believe. So just reach out if you need somebody, and believe in yourself.
Thank you, Miki. And I know Miki is also available if you guys want to reach out. She has constantly talked about this on her social media platform. So I'm going to put her contacts down below. So if you need somebody to speak to, if you resonate with her, please contact her. She's there for you. She has dealt with a lot of things, so I'm sure she can hold your hand through your journey.
I would
of course, if you have something to say, something to share, please contact us here at Uncensored. We would love to have you on board on our radio show. So thanks, everybody. My name is Marianne, and I'm from Yachts Mermaids for Uncensored Yachting International Radio Show. Bye.